Welcome to Orange Coast Unitarian Universalist Church. My name is Jolene Ibanez, and I am your worship associate today. I am joined by Reverend Sian Wiltshire, our minister, Jacob Sweatland, our director of music ministries, and Danielle Lewis, our director of religious education for children and youth. We are all welcoming you this morning. Whether you have been here 30 years or 10 months, or 10 minutes. And whether you strolled, rolled, zoomed, ran, or danced in, we are glad you have joined us. I want to extend a special welcome to visitors. If you're seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you will find it here. And Happy New Year. Happy New Year. We're a community of many different identities and beliefs. We are bound together not by dogmas or creeds or fears, but rather a covenant to create a welcoming, inclusive, and loving community. We need not think alike to love alike. In the spirit of building this community, let's recognize the many volunteers who have helped put this service together today. Thank you. Roomers, we invite you to silence your cell phone. Roomers, we invite you to silence your cell phones. And to the Zoomers, we invite you to say hello in the chat. As we worship today, let us acknowledge that our church property rests on sacred ancestral homelands of the Ahachiman and Tongva people who seek justice and responsible stewardship. We begin our worship with the lighting of our chalice. And this morning, I'd like to invite Ralph Holler, man extraordinaire, who hails from New York City and is very familiar with the Great White Way. He's very funny. Sometimes he gives stand-up routines for auction events. He transferred his membership from South Carolina, somewhere along the line, and we're glad he's here with us in sunny Southern California. Come on up here. You got it? Okay. And let us say together our affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. This we affirm together. Very spry.
Please rise in body or spirit, and let's sing our opening song, Morning Has Come. Morning has come, arise and greet the day. Dance with joy and sing a song of gladness. The light of hope here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. A new day dawns, once more the gift is give. Wonder fills this moment shared together. The light of peace here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home. Open our eyes to see that life abounds. Open hearts to welcome it among us. The light of love here shines upon each face. May it bring faith to guide our journey home.
Well, today we begin a new year, and so too a new story as yet unwritten. A new story for ourselves, our congregation, and even our nation. And what will these stories be? Will they have happy or sad endings? Well, you, all of you, are authors of this story. And what will you choose to write? A tragedy, a comedy, a drama, or maybe even a musical. And next slide.
I am the very model of a modern Unitarian, far broader than a Catholic, Hindu, Jew, or Presbyterian. I know the world's religions and can trace their roots historical, from Moses up to Channing, all in order categorical. I'm very well acquainted too with theories theological. On existential questions I am always wholly logical. About most any problem I am teeming with a lot of views. I'm full of fine ideas that should fill our church's empty pews.
We're full of fine ideas that should fill our church's empty pews. We're full of fine ideas that should fill our church's empty pews. We're full of fine ideas that should fill our church's empty pews.
I quote from Freud and Jung and all the experts psychological. I'm anti-nuke, I don't pollute, I'm chastely ecological. In short, it matters spiritual, ethical, material. I am the very model of a modern Unitarian.
In short, it matters spiritual, ethical, material. We are the very model of a modern Unitarian.
I use the latest language, God is never Father or the Lord, but ground of being, source of life, or almost any other word. I never pray, I meditate, I'm leery about worshiping. I serve on 10 committees, none of which accomplish anything. I give to worthy causes and I drive a gas-conserving car. I have good UU principles, although I'm not sure what they are. I'm open to opinions of profound or broad variety, unless they're too conservative or smack of righteous piety.
Unless they're too conservative or smack of righteous piety. Unless they're too conservative or smack of righteous piety. Unless they're too conservative or smack of righteous piety.
I formulate agendas and discuss them with the best of them, but don't ask me to implement, we leave that to the rest of them. In short, it matters spiritual, ethical, material. I am the very model of today's religious liberal.
In short, it matters spiritual, ethical, material. We are the very model of today's religious liberal.
I feel like we have to play that one at least once a year because it's so awesome, right? And Steve Morihiro, I believe, is here today, so hey. Okay, now for something completely different, but it ties all in, let me tell you. All right, so if you didn't know that today, January 5th, for our Time for All Ages, we're going to talk about a special holiday called Twelfth Night. Has anybody here heard of Twelfth Night?
Yes.
A few people have heard of Twelfth Night. Okay. Well, it's not a holiday that really anyone celebrates much anymore, and I'm here to tell you why. So long before the Christian religion came along, the Romans had a festival called Saturnalia that occurred sort of around this time. It was a common theme of this particular festival was the flipping around of different roles that people would play in their culture. So a peasant might be an emperor, or a man would dress up as a woman, that kind of thing. And when Christianity came along and took over these pagan areas, this transition got transferred to the Christian holiday of Twelfth Night. It was also known as the Festival of Fools. I wish we had this one still. So why is it called Twelfth Night? Well, first of all, you remember the song, The 12 Days of Christmas, on the first day of Christmas my true love gave to me, right? Okay, it's called the 12 Days of Christmas, and if you count 12 days back from December 25th, right, or forward from December 25th, you get January 5th, the 12th night. And that's where it gets its name. And the old festivals of Saturnalia lasted a long time, so the Christians found a way to make Christmas last a long time too. And now that's not all. So tomorrow is January 6th, which is another Christian holiday, which is still somewhat celebrated in a lot of Christian churches, and it's called Epiphany. That's the day when remember those 3 wise men in the story, right? They came to the baby Jesus and gave him gifts. That happened on the 12th night as well, because sometimes Epiphany, depending on when you count the 12th day, either happens today or tomorrow. All right, so Epiphany has another name, which is called Old Christmas. Okay, because you see, long ago, our calendar was a little wonky, and it didn't add up to 365 days. So in 1752, 12 days were removed from the calendar, moving Christmas backwards to December 25th. Christmas used to be celebrated on January 5th or 6th. So of course, the Christians, we get upset about daylight savings time, right? So they wanted to have their date. So they kind of, like we do. So they made a festival time to last until New Christmas, December 25th, to the night before Epiphany or Old Christmas, that is 12 days. And if you decide you want to celebrate 12th night, know that your Christmas decorations, for those of you who haven't done it yet, were to be taken down by midnight tonight.
No.
Yes, they have to be down by midnight tonight. And they took all of their Christmas decorations, particularly the trees, and they would put them together, and they'd have a big bonfire. And if you didn't do this, it was bad luck. You'd have bad luck for the whole year, and for every branch on your Christmas tree, a goblin would appear to torment
Do
you.
they look like cats?
They do look something like cats, yes. So of course, when they had this big bonfire, that meant a big party. And the community would get together and have this big feast before the somber day of Epiphany with lots of drinking and revelry. Okay, so after going through all these changes for thousands of years, by the 19th century, 12th night was the exciting climax of a month-long Christmas season, okay? And children were included in the balls, there were masquerade parties, and there were like these characters that people would play, like Molly Mumper and Sam Sadboy and Miss Olagog, which I just thought was kind of interesting. On top of all that, all these parties being in full swing, there was this rich, wonderful cake that people would make called the King's Cake. And inside the cake was a special bean or coin, and whoever got it got to be king for the day. If you've heard of this before, you know that it occurs at Mardi Gras to this day, right? Now that all sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it? Right? So why did this holiday go away? Well, enter the Victorian era. And the rather prissy Queen Victoria had had enough of all this revelry that was going on, because there was a lot of drinking going on, and she outlawed the holiday. And so to this day, almost no English-speaking country celebrates 12th night. But if you happen to be there in Greece, Italy, or Spain, you might find a few people who will still celebrate it today. And isn't it amazing how stories change over time? That is our time for all ages this morning. I hope everybody learned a little something about today, this special day. I'd like to invite Danielle Lewis, our Director of Religious Education for our children, and she will light the children's chalice as we sing them out to the religious education classes if they would like to go.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our love as you go.
I think this morning one of the children did not feel the love. He looked a little grumpy. We've all been there though, right? Yeah. Well, this morning I want to tell you about some stories. So before I heard about Unitarian Universalism, I wanted a spiritual community. I didn't know what that would be, and I tried all sorts of them, and I came close to actually joining Reform Judaism. And if you didn't know about Reform Judaism, it's sort of the liberal arm of the Jewish faith. And I remember going to this synagogue for about a month or two. I went there, And I remember they sang, some of the songs were in English, but as it was funny, it started out in the beginning of the month, it would be all in English, and then by the end of the month, they had it in mostly Hebrew. So they did this each month as a way of just offering different ways of being Jewish to people. But it was really kind of great because they had English translations under everything so I could understand, and they had also pronunciation guidelines for the Hebrew, which was very helpful. And I have to say that the people there were absolutely delightful. They were so welcoming and kind, and I really liked them. I thought they were wonderful. But I realized after a few months that after attending, I was like, their story is not my story. And I didn't know how any way to put it, but it's just that their story wasn't mine. I had no tie really to the history of the Jewish people, which is rich and beautiful and full of resilience, but it just didn't resonate with me. I always think that there's a perfect place for everyone. And as I look back on this, I have to kind of wonder, what was it about the Unitarian Universalist story that actually did make me feel like I had found my people? Which is how I felt almost immediately coming to that church. What is our story? Because unlike most religions, we don't have an origin story. Not really. No one person founded Unitarianism or Universalism or Unitarian Universalism. I suppose you could say that we could trace both branches of our faith back to Jesus. I always like to say the question, who do you say that I am, was the beginning of Unitarianism and Universalism, because we like to question, right? But we did come out of the Christian tradition, but we're so different from that time now, embracing people of all different beliefs and no belief and all sorts of things are so much different. What is it then? What is it that holds us together? We've changed and grown so much. So like the holiday of Twelfth Night, see the connection there? Okay. So like the holiday of Twelfth Night, we've changed as we encounter new religions and new ways of being. But unlike Twelfth Night, we're still around. Why? What is it that holds us together to this day? What is our binding story? This has been pondering in my mind for a few months now. You know, William Stafford, the poet, he wrote this wonderful poem. Some of you may know it. It goes like this. He said, "There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain the thread, but it's hard for others to see. And while you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you can do can stop time's unfolding, but you don't ever let go of the thread." You don't ever let go of the thread. And we haven't let go of the thread of our story, but what is our thread? What holds us together? What held the ideas and ideals of our tradition over the millennia? If we're going to trace our threads of whatever runs through our history, where do we even start? Do we start back in the time of Jesus, the Council of Nicaea maybe, where there was the big argument about Jesus' divinity and we kind of, lost that argument? Or do we start with the Puritans who brought their way of governing that we still practice today? Or the 18th, 19th century, with the founding of the Unitarians and the Universalists, those separate denominations back then? Well, that might be a longer sermon than I have time for this morning. So I decided that we'll go back to the merger of the two denominations in 1961. Okay, now talk of a merger between these two denominations, Unitarians and the Universalists, began in the 1940s. The two denominations had very similar theological views, values, and goals. Both groups emphasized personal freedom of belief in matters of faith and in commitment to social justice. But they had very different historical roots. The Unitarians focused on individual freedom and rationality, and the Universalists emphasized universal love and the salvation of all. It took a while, but they had actually grown closer in outlook over time. In part, they started to realize that Unitarianism meant maybe the unity of all, and Universalism meant the universal love of all. Now, there was lots of concerns over the merger. Some Universalists feared loss of their identity of God's all-encompassing love that would be surpassed by the I would say, larger population of the Unitarians whose emphasis on reason and humanism. The Universalists saw themselves as more rural and heart-centered, the Unitarians more urban and intellectual, as we heard Steve sing this morning. Everything is wholly logical. The Unitarians, in contrast, were concerned with the more Christian and theistic focus of the Universalists. Many had rejected Christianity and theism in general, so there were fears of sort of this creeping theism that would oust the atheists and humanists. And of course, most were worried about losing members and those who were firmly attached to their denominational identity. They wanted things to stay as they are. So with all of these concerns out there, how do we actually make it happen? Well, the leaders of both denominations generously listened and spent time letting one another hear each other's concerns. They emphasized our shared values and commitment to religious freedom, social justice, and the use of both reason and compassion in faith. Ultimately, some individuals and some congregations did not choose to join the new Unitarian Universalist Association in 1961, but the vast majority did, and the merger was finalized. And of course, the challenges, they didn't stop there, right? First, it was like, well, how do we express ourselves if we're kind of both rational as well as compassionate? How does that express itself into the world? How do we express that new one? Do we even get to have one? We wanted a common theological statement for our new denomination, but no one could decide on the right language. In the first couple of iterations of it, this is one of the first iterations, it was 6 principles instead of 7. And you can see, as I've highlighted here, that there was a little bit too much God language for some people, or sexist language. In particular, the Women's Federation noted, can we take out all of the male-sounding words in there? There was a lot of haggling and wordsmithing, and we eventually came up with the 7 principles, and of course our 6 sources, which is a different story. So this is what we had until just very, very recently. So this was by 2017, we made other changes to them, including non-specific gender language. And we put it in our bylaws very early on that every 15 years, we're supposed to examine and potentially revamp these principles and sources. We want these to become a creed. But, so this is 2017, it finally get finalized. In 2016, y'all remember what happened in 2016? Because it's kind of happening again. But 2006 happened with a ton of cultural changes going on: George Floyd's death, the Pulse nightclub massacre, the Me Too movement, and Black Lives Matter movements, and we began to embrace more radical forms of inclusion. Now, we tried lots of forms of anti-oppression over the years, and some of it was done well, and some of it not so well, and we kept kind of bumbling forward, always seeking to be more open and inclusive. And that, in and itself, created a kind of controversy within our denomination, because can you go too far in being inclusive? Like any extreme, the answer is yes, because you can be exclusive in your inclusivity, right? Unfortunately. Please do understand, though, that it really came out of desire to do good work, to be inclusive. So out of the desire to do the work on anti-racism, they then proposed this thing, the 8th principle, was proposed to focus on this, and particularly anti-racism. And some people, unfortunately, to my mind, saw it as sort of this nefarious attempt to force wokeism down people's throats, in particular because of the word accountably. Because what did that mean? How do we hold each other as accountable, right? And if you didn't agree with something, were you then going to be ousted? Like, there was a lot of fear around this. There was a lot of concerns. Now, I personally didn't see it that way, but it did spark some very interesting conversations. And like our theological ancestors, leadership listened to the concerns, believe it or not, and instead of promoting the 8th principle, which many congregations had actually already adopted, the leadership put together a group of people to look at the issue, and they came up with our shared values just this last year. So By the way, these are just 2 iterations of the same thing. You can see that people are starting to play around with this graphic. On the one on your left is sort of the official one that came out of the UUA, and the one on the right is one church's interpretation of it, which I thought was kind of pretty, and we'll have a couple more of those as well. So now, this passed by, the idea was that we were going to change the 7 principles and 6 sources to make it about these shared values with love at the center, right? You all have heard me talk about this. For this, some of you, I'm summarizing this. For some of you who might be somewhat new to Unitarian Universalism, it passed by majority vote this last year. So we technically, as a denomination, don't have 7 principles and 6 sources, but of course, each congregation can do as they please. Now, like the merger, some people have embraced this change and others not so much. But I want to make sure you understand that while I get why people want to hold on to the principles, I mean, I really like those principles too, but for me, the new shared values express my theology a bit better, but that's me, it doesn't have to be you. Some people really love our principles, and that's okay. And some people do want to hold on to the identity of our principles, just as our Unitarians and Universalists did. And some are concerned that there's still shadows of some of the bullying of wokeness from our shared values and the word accountable, which is in sort of the small print. And time will tell. But honestly, I'm not concerned. And you know why? Because we've always been able to figure it out over time. We don't always get it perfect the first time. But give us enough time and generosity of spirit and a sense of justice. When we embrace our pluralism and our interdependence, we will transform always into something new. We're always growing and becoming. So that leads me to one of the threads that goes through our history. We are a living tradition. A living tradition. That means that we grow and change. We don't ever stop growing and changing. And that can be hard because change is hard. Transformation is hard. But I'd rather belong to a living tradition than a dead one. One that won't change because it's locked into its creeds and dogmas. While other religions often stubbornly stick to the past and not changing, we proudly proclaim our transformative nature to being more and more inclusive, even if we don't always get it right. And honestly, I don't care if that means that we're always going to be a smaller denomination. I don't think we're ever going to be the Catholic Church. We've always been on the bleeding edge. That's what it means to be a living tradition. We're leading the new ways, not following the old ways. So our first thread is that we are a living tradition, always transforming and changing. And the second one for me is our covenant. We're not a faith tradition that's bound by a creed or dogma. So people say, well, what then brings you together? Why would you all come together and be together on church on Sunday morning? Everyone is here to believe and free to believe in God or not, or just, maybe I'll think about it. We are instead a covenantal faith, meaning we're bound by a promise. Now, this isn't a promise that you sign in blood or give your firstborn to or anything. It's a heart promise, right? And it's not with God, like the Jewish faith. They have a covenant with their God, but it's a covenant with one another. And our promise, our heart promise, is that wherever our paths lead us, we will walk them together in love. And that's not easy, because we might not agree with each other's path, that of an individual or even our denomination sometimes. But if we follow the path of our heart and our head, we will come to the same place ultimately, even if we diverge for a little while. Being in covenant means accepting those challenges and often sometimes being a little uncomfortable, right? Now, I know that a number of you have been around for a very long time in this church through different UUA presidents, different ministers of this congregation, through controversies and cultural changes. I'm preaching to the choir for those of you, right? That's why you're still here. You get this. You understand what covenant is, that it means to be in community, to stick it out, even when it gets rough, and bringing your concerns to the table and listening to the concerns of others. It's ultimately about this community and holding that love is the spirit of this church. So that's our second thread, is our covenant that holds us together. And of course, the third thread that I see going through a history of our denomination is love at the center. Here's two more different iterations. But notice love is at the center. It kind of baffles me, honestly, that love was not part of our original 7 principles. It seems so obvious to me. We've been talking about it forever. We had standing on the side of love and all of that sort of thing. It seems obvious to me. It's always been part of my theology or philosophy to put love at the center, but maybe it just took us 60 plus years to figure it out. On the scale of most religions, that's actually a really short time period. We're moving at speed of light, man. So, what might be next? What do you think is next? Because no one really knows at this point, but I want to invite you to think about these threads and what threads maybe you see as well. As Stafford said, there's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. And you never let go of the thread. So I want to invite you into a time of meditation this morning. What do you see as the thread that goes through our history? So take a deep breath. I've given you a blazing run through our history. Those of you that are new, what do you see as different or new? What threads did we maybe miss? For those of you who've been around for a long time, you can think about that as well. Take a deep breath. Come centered here. As we start this new year, what threads have we been weaving, and what threads will we weave? And when you're ready, join Jacob in singing.
Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Mystery, mystery, life is a riddle and a mystery. Where do we come from? Where are we going? Where do we come from? Where are we going?
Where do we come from and where are we going? It's a mystery. I think that's one of the toughest things about being a Unitarian Universalist, is the mystery of it all. But what about this church? How have we been holding our threads? You know, this church we started long ago in a living room then moved to rented places, kind of like this one here, before they built the new church over on Victoria. And then almost 12 years ago, we moved here to this space, kind of what it looked like toward the beginning. And now, oh, there we go, our new sanctuary. Yeah, I know, it's so exciting. It looks like it's about to happen. We've been working on this new sanctuary ever since we moved here. So, knocking on wood. Okay, now, all of this history, going from a living room to renting spaces to building a new spot up there on Victoria to moving here to building this one. Do you think that all happened without concerns? Without some controversies? Of course there were. We're Unitarian Universalists. We have opinions. You know, whether or not can we actually build it? Can we afford this? Whether or not we should move. They like the old place. Of course. And other issues have come up too in all of this time. This church has had some absolutely amazing ministers, and one maybe that didn't work out really well. Those of you who've been around for a while, you know who I'm talking about. That also created a lot of turmoil in the congregation. Yet despite all of this, here we are building a new sanctuary, one bigger than the one before, on land larger than the one before, with more parking than ever before, which is really important. And on top of that, we are creating a spiritual campus. We have 5 congregations that join us on this land, sharing our space without rancor, but in peace. They're absolutely wonderful. We've had some incredible ministries in this church, including the AIDS team ministry, working against Prop 8, under the leadership of Reverend Karen Stoyanov, taking in Ukrainians and helping other refugees, the Afghani family. And now here we are working on climate justice and reviving our LGBTQ action group. So what is next for us? What is our next story? I have no clue. But I can tell you we got some things to look forward to. First of all, I know that Wendy is going to be offering a class this spring on building your own theology. Wendy is our intern minister. I'll be offering a class at some point this year on our shared values, because we need to discuss them, like what do they mean to each one of us, and how do we put love at the center? We're going to be doing all of these things. And of course, if you remember, there was a moment actually earlier this year when Catherine McFarland, who's our president of our congregation, she got a bunch of people, the leaders in this congregation, together to say, what do we need to do? What do we need to, as a congregation, what do we want to work on? And out of that, out of all of your input, these were the priorities that we came up. So increase new member and membership engagement, increase membership of families and kids, and promoting a development of a long-range planning committee, which Eric and I are meeting with soon. So we're coming up to doing some visioning around all of this, and we want all of your input because that's how we have always gotten through this. We want to hear your concerns and your solutions to all of these things. We're going to be doing some investing in what we need to do, and it's going to take everybody pitching in. And in the fall, we'll be in our new sanctuary. Yeah. So what is our story, right? After all of this, what is our story? Well, I can tell you that our story is not finished yet. We're still writing it. And in fact, it really had no beginning or ending. It is a story that is constantly unfolding. It's a story of the people and by the people. A people who want to create a radically inclusive community. It's a story about not always getting it right, but always coming back together in covenant to figure it out. In short, it's a love story. And we'll keep writing it. So let us sing.
Please rise and body your spirit, and let's sing Building a New Way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. We are building a new way. stronger every day. We are building a new way. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. We are working to be free. Hate and greed and jealousy. We are working to be free. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. We can feed our every need. Start with love, that is the seed. We can feed our every need. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Peace and freedom is our cry. Without these, this world will die. Peace and freedom is our cry.
Speaking of peace and freedom, Unitarian Universalist congregations are fully self-supporting, meaning that members and friends raise all of the funds for the operating budget, ministries, and programs of this church. We are ever grateful for your gifts of time, treasure, and talent. OCUUC amplifies that spirit of generosity by sharing half the plate we receive with an organization that shares our values. This month, we are partnering with Stand Up for Kids. Let me tell you something about them. There are an estimated 27,000 homeless and housing insecure youth between 12 and 24 years old in Orange County. These youth are at risk of falling victim to gang violence, substance abuse, human trafficking, yes, in Orange County, disease, and hunger. And our goal is to reach them before they reach the point of no return. In 2023, now we've just finished 2024, so this website will update their information soon, I hope. But in 2023, 98% of the youth that they housed transitioned from crisis to self-sufficiency. So thank you for your support. Oh, I'm sorry, there's more. There are multiple ways in which you can, you don't know how, right? There are multiple ways in which you can support this church and this organization. You can mail a check. You can go through our website. You can use an app called Vanco Mobile because we're forward-thinking people. If you are a roomer, you can also simply use the basket as it's passed. The choice is yours. All the information is on our website should you need it. As always, thank you for your generosity.
Give to me the life I love, let the lave go by me. Give the jolly heaven above, and the byway nigh me. Bed in the bush with stars to see, bread I dip in the river. There's a life for a man like me. There's the life forever. Let the blow fall soon or late, let what will be o'er me. Give the face of earth around, and the road before me. Wealth I seek not, hope nor love, nor a friend to know me. All I seek the heaven above, and the road below me. Or let autumn fall on me, where afield I linger, silencing the bird on tree, biting the blue finger. White as meal the frosty field, warm the fireside haven. Not to autumn will I yield, not to winter even. Let the blow fall soon or late, let what will be o'er me. Give the face of earth around, and the road before me. Wealth I ask not, hope nor love, nor a friend to know me. All I ask the heaven above, and the road below me.
Well, it's the first Sunday of the month, and we have always an update that's going on about our new sanctuary. I'd like to invite Craig Sperry, who is the chair of our sanctuary committee, to come up here and give us a little update.
Morning, everyone. Thank you. So we have an updated time-lapse video showing the construction underway. I think Reverend Sean mentioned we're about 4.5 months into construction, and it's going smoothly. We haven't had any major interruptions, and keep our fingers crossed that we're on schedule to complete in July, we think, August. We think, that's what they tell us. They said it was a 10-month time period to build. We started in September, so you count 10 months from September, we're in July. So everyone keep their fingers crossed. So if you come every week, I encourage everyone to look over and see what's happening. Now, don't go behind the fence, of course, because it's a construction zone. But you'll see, like this week, the black paper's up for the eventual stucco. And if you kind of look underneath, you see wiring, and you see the sprinkler system. Since we'll have a sprinkler, that's going in place. So a lot of stuff is going on kind of in the background. Our time-lapse camera, even though it's on that building and it faces that way, you're missing a lot of the inside details. So they're happening. So as you watch the time-lapse, which we thank Steve Morehiro for his beautiful work. So enjoy. And I would even encourage people, instead of just looking from this one direction, even walk around the driveway and look from the other angle, so you really get a feel for the building. So thank you, everyone.
Please join us in singing We Gather Together, a song that puts our intentions into words and expresses the many gratitudes for the gifts that we share. We gather together, we gather as one, for peace, love, and justice for everyone. We give from our hearts to show that we care. We can change lives with what we share.
Just so you know, I'm not holding my breath for July, just because we have to deal with the city and permitting. So put your good mojo out there. All right. Well, now is that time when we honor the important events and people in our lives. It's a weekly ritual that we call Joys and Sorrows, and you are invited, one and all, member, friend, visitor, everyone is invited to participate in this. I'd like to invite Lori Kluge up here. She's one of our pastoral care team members, and she'll assist us in lighting candles. If you've come here today, the idea is if you've come here today holding something close to your heart, moments from the last days, weeks, or even hours that has struck you at your core, if you'd like to honor this profound joy or sorrow, you are welcome to do so. If you're a roomer, you're invited to come forward to light a candle. If you'd like to share your joy or sorrow, you can write it on a slip of paper like this. The ushers have them if you didn't get one when you first came in, and they would be happy to give you one as well. So roomers, basically, if you would like to have a candle lit for you, you can write it in the chat, and then Lori will light a candle for you. So once the roomers have come up here and lit their candles, I'll read the joys and sorrows out loud, both those from the roomers and the Zoomers. So please come forward, and I invite you to silently offer healing or celebration as you feel called and according to your own beliefs. Please come forward. So our Zoomers will have some wonderful things to share. So Sarah J., our administrator, she has a joy. She said, excellent way to start the new year with this sanctuary quite full this morning. This is why we're building a new sanctuary in part, right? We're getting really full. And she said, happy to see so many friendly faces. Welcome. We light a candle for her. And then Francie C. said, spent a wonderful Christmas week with daughter and grandchildren visiting from East Coast. Nice. So, and Avery B., who normally sits back there in the corner, they are online. And they said, please light a candle of gratitude for the tech team's flexibility as I deal with autoimmune issues. Thanks, Caden and team. And if you could light a candle for me as a wonderful, delightful surprise for many of us who've been around for a while to have Beth and Tom Winnett here today with us, some long-term members from long ago. And I knew them when they were in Nashville, and I was the intern there. That's like, what, 15 years ago? So it's really great to see you. All right. So for the rumors here, Aaron N said that he lit a candle of joy. He said, celebrating, he says, my 74th birthday on Thursday with my twin brother. Very cool. And the late, great Richard Nixon. Only joking. All right. Let's see here. Oh, Dolly actually had a joy and a sorrow that didn't get read last Sunday because I believe that we didn't have them given the ritual that they did, a fire ceremony. So back in December, she said, the joy is the other day I celebrated my 85th birthday as I turned 84 years of age. Get it? And she said, sorrow is a few days ago I celebrated my 85th birthday. All right, and Alan and Gabrielle B., they lit a candle of joy because they were able to meet their 7-month-old grandson, Avi, and to spend some time with his parents, our son Ethan and his wife Isha, over the holidays. Yay. Congratulations, that's always nice. And Soph and Zoe, she lit a candle of joy. She said, for clarity concerning the plans for the future, digging deep and planting roots in this wonderful community. And we are glad you are digging here too. Dave Carlson has both an announcement and a joy. I'll put the announcement in the announcements part, but he has a candle of hope for all of the wonderful participation in our endowment fund. You'll hear more about this, and I will make sure to put that during announcements. Simone B. lit a candle of sorrow. She said, for all of the tragedies that happened in this country over the holiday season and in the world. There have been so many, right? Ooh, it's gonna be a rough year. And Jazzy and Jamie, they also have lit a candle of sorrow for Bruce. Bruce was a very dear friend that passed away this week. You will never be forgotten and always in our hearts. You will always be loved by your friends. I'm sorry, Jazzy and Jamie. And some of you may know this as well, that Karen and Jonathan, they lit a candle of sorrow. Their friend Rhiannon Smith, who was quite an active Unitarian Universalist in the young adults, she died on Christmas Day at age 35. She was a pillar of the youth adult community at First UU San Diego and a UUA staff member and essential contributor to diverse revolutionary UU ministries, also known as DRUM, and she is so missed. Many in the UU world are really mourning right now. And for those of you who may not know this, Linda C., who's usually online, she is currently in the hospital, but she's getting out. She's going to be okay. She is suffering from COPD, but will be okay. And then I have one more very, very sad announcement to make, and I want to apologize for those of you that I have not been able to call directly or talk to directly this morning. I found out this morning that Marilyn Gist passed away. Yeah. This is a huge loss for our community. She was very beloved and such a beautiful soul. So, let us hold in love all the joys and celebrations and the hurts and sadness, both spoken and silent. Let our joys remind us to be thankful, our concerns remind us to hope, and our sorrows remind us to connect with one another. And let all these moments remind us that we are not alone. Oops, looks like I missed one in the chat. Whoops, and unfortunately I can't see it anymore. But please join Lori in a spirit of prayer.
Eternal Spirit of life and love, we come together in your presence today, grateful to be a part of the great story. What a magnificent story it is. Into this great story, into this great tapestry of natural beauty and human endeavor, we can weave in threads of good deeds. Help us, O Spirit, to move this story along and to jolt it every day towards love. Amen.
Marilyn's story will continue to live on in her grandchildren and her children, and of course in our memories and on our hearts.
Let us join together as we extinguish the flame of our chalice and say together, thank you for joining us this morning. If you're a guest, a visitor, or someone who hasn't yet been known to us, I invite you to become a part of this beloved, beloved, beloved community. If you would like to know more about our church, we invite you to either stop by the welcome table in the courtyard or contact us at hello@ocuuc.org, and we will help you get connected. Zoomers are welcome to stay after in the chat and chat with one another online, and you can all wave at them on this little doohickey over here. We want everyone to feel a part of this beloved community, so please reach out and we will help you get connected.
Okay, I will let you know when the memorial service is for Marilyn. We do also have on the 18th one for our beloved Clover as well. This is a hard thing sometimes about being in community, isn't it? That you lose people that you love. But we're here together, and I'm really grateful for that. So you can see there's lots of wonderful things going on here that you can get involved with and work on, and all sorts of fun things. I want to point out, come join the choir. You can come to choir rehearsals on Thursday nights. We've got a sermon discussion group if you want to discuss the sermon a little bit more today, or even other topics. You can get involved that way. There are lots of things that we can do. And I don't know, if I should say this, is anybody going home to watch the Rose Bowl after this? Or did it already happen? It already happened, okay. Because Francie says, yay for Ohio State Rose Bowl win on Texas. But she said now, and I was like, is it happening now? I didn't want to spoil anything for anybody. So that was the joy that I missed, and her grandson works for Ohio State Buckeyes. So I also want to mention also that, Dave Carlson, he is one of the people working on our endowment, which we have a nice, healthy endowment. We want to make it even healthier, and he's hoping that everybody will participate in helping our endowment become even more and more healthy. And he's got some updated brochures for you today, and he's going to be presenting sort of in the next 2 or 3 weeks more information about it after church. So is that right, Dave? Yes.
2 weeks from today and 3 weeks from
2 and 3 weeks from today, he's going to be presenting about our endowment, how we're doing, and what you can do to help that endowment. So, all right, everyone. I think Marilyn would tell us this. Go write a love story. Let's join in singing our recessional song.
Let us go out and all do our part. Let us go out, bring joy to each heart. Let us go out with indifference destroyed. Let us go out with joy. Let us go out and all do our part. Let us go out, bring joy to each heart. Let us go out with indifference destroyed. Let us go out with joy. Let us go out with joy. Let us go out with joy.
This service is over. Let our service continue.